we're going to start standing. And the first thing that we're going to start doing is just free flowing movement of your feet. So not really thinking about how they're moving, just trying to move through the toes here. I'm going to even do a few movements of just rocking side to side with your feet. And just beginning to build some awareness of how the feet are moving. Maybe lift a heel up and circle it an other way. You might hear some creaking going on or some little pops as the joint starts to get opened up. Maybe even doing a few curls of the toes under here. So just random kind of just movements for the foot. And then take and do kind of separate your feet a little bit. Another movement is just going to be this rocking. So heel plant, really emphasize ball of the foot, and then up to the tip toe. Okay, then let's switch it. Let's bring the other foot behind us, same thing. Try to articulate heel, ball of the foot, tippy toe. And then let's take one foot behind us. So that toe is going to point away, so that top of the foot stretch. As we hold it though, let's do some movement in and out. So let's do an active movement here. And then now let's just hold, so heel straight back, lengthen upward. And then as you release, let's flip it over to the other leg. Again, we'll start with some movement. And then let's go into just a hold here. Okay. As you release, let's take and do some strengtheners for the toenails. So let's start with big toes down. Let's work on lifting just the 4 little toes. And you guys have your permission to bend your knees and hold any of the toes that need to be kind of held down here if they're not understanding what needs to move and what needs to stay. And now let's try the big toes lifting up. And there's something that we're going to really pay attention into this particular exercise when we do it. So what I want you guys to notice is as you guys do this one, oops, sorry, big toes up. I want you to notice your 4 little toes, and I want you to notice where the creases are in them and see if, I don't know if you guys can tell this, but when I do this, the joints of my toes actually kind of go the opposite way, like they dimple downward. And maybe yours don't do that, but I can just see as I do this, they grip onto the floor. So it's just an observation that we're going to do right now with that. Trying to lift the big toes. Okay, now lift all 10 toes up off the floor. And in particular, we're going to look at the big toes. And can we move the big toes toward each other and then back to kind of normal? So lift them up, try to pull the big toes toward each other. And you can literally take your hands and use your pointer fingers to pull the big toes together and then back out. pull them together, in, out. If you have bunions, this movement might be a little bit smaller just because that joint has been altered slightly here. Okay, so if you've done it a few times with the hands helping support move the toes in and out, can you do it now with just lifting the toes? Try to get the big toes to come towards each other, pinky toes out to the side, and then relax. So can you create that same action without having the hands do the work? Okay, one last time. Okay, take one foot and just shift your weight and do a few curls of the toes under here. And then we'll switch it over to the other side. Okay, from here, take and have a seat. Now, as you get down onto the floor, how you're going to stack up your legs is going to kind of be up to you. What we're going to try to do is get access to our foot here. If you, let's see if I can get it to look. If you lift your toes up, kind of see how it creates little gullies at the top of your foot. Okay, so in these little gullies, kind of between ligaments and tendons, you can have tension built up in between them. And so one of the things that you can do, and if we had like a little bit of a massage oil or something or a lotion, this would go a little bit better, but it's a technique that I can show you and you can try later on, is you're gonna go right in between one of those. So when you see those lines happening, you're gonna go right in between at the top of the ankle, and you're gonna slide right in between down towards the webbing of your foot. So you're just adding some little pressure here, going right down in between. And what you'll do is you'll do maybe, 4 strokes or so, and then you'll go to the next one, just using your thumb. And sometimes along these little gullies, there's some particular spaces of tension in them. And then just go to the next one. And then eventually make your way all the way towards right in between the pinky toe and the second toe there. Okay, next thing we're gonna do with our feet, I mentioned that when your foot was on the floor, I wanted you to look at if it dimpled down. It sounds strange, but you can actually do exercises that strengthen the muscles in each individual toe. And here is what it looks like. You take your pointer finger and you bring it underneath the tip of your toe. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna curl your toe down as you pull up. So toe curls down and you pull up. It's like adding like a resistance band to that toe. And what you're going to do is you'll start to feel the muscles at the top of that toe engaging as you add resistance. Again, you're going to do like 3 or 4, and then you'll go to the next toe. And as you go, you might find, wow, I have certain toes that are stronger than other toes. That can be very true, and it can differ from side to side as well. Go to the next toe. So you might find that you have to reduce the amount of resistance with your hand because this toe is not maybe as strong as a different toe. Okay, let's go to that pinky one. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're just going to take and like scissor, if you will, like scissor kind of your toes and just right kind of this. So we have 3 different joints here, just kind of moving this part of the foot, kind of the ball of the foot, back and forth if we can. And you can even kind of scissor the toes a little bit too. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to stand up. I'm going to have you guys stand up. We're going to notice what it feels like after doing that movement in a standing position, and then we're going to come back down and we're going to do the other foot. Okay, so let's come up to standing. Get your feet facing straight forward. Arms can come at your sides, palms can turn forward here. And allow the eyes to close just to allow yourself to focus inward here. So begin to feel any differences of sensation in the foot, and maybe even some of those sensations radiate up the leg, maybe up the whole one side of the body. Notice maybe if one side feels more stable, maybe one side feels stronger, one side might feel like it has more energy or more circulation in it. Okay, the foot that you just did all of that movement on, let's take and shift our weight into that foot. Let's take and extend the opposite leg straight out in front of us, so into a balancing movement, just holding there. If you want to try the balancing movement and close your eyes for a moment or two, see how that changes the workings of your feet and your legs. Okay, take it down. So now we're going to balance on the foot that we didn't do any of that seated stuff on it, and we'll see how this foot is maybe different. So opposite leg in front of us. And again, if you want to close your eyes, see what happens with your balance. See how your nervous system has to respond to figure out where you are in time and space. And then as you release, we'll come back down to the floor, and then we're going to do that seated sequence to our feet again. So again, we'll start at the top of the ankle. We'll slide our thumb just right through in between kind of these tendons of the feet, ligaments of the feet, just right in the center here. We'll do about 3 or 4 times. And we'll go to the next one. And then just keep switching here. Once you get to that last one, again, we're going to get the pointer finger. We're going to come underneath like the toenail of the little toes. We're going to curl under as we pull up. We didn't do this on the big toe because the big toe, the top side of the toe is actually pretty strong on the big toe. So we only do this particular one to the little toes. Not that it wouldn't hurt to do it on the big toe, it's just that it's stronger. Keep switching to each toe as you do, again, like 3 or 4 little, like doing little mini weights for your toes. And again, you might notice, gosh, I have some toes on this side, maybe that are a lot weaker than the other side. Okay, then let's go to trying to kind of scissor these bottom joints. See if there's any sort of movability, kind of rocking back and forth. There might not be a lot. Just even seeing if there is any. And then eventually going up to just scissoring through the toes as well. Okay, let's come back up to standing. Again, stand in mountain pose, feet forward. We'll take a few breaths of observation as we stand tall here. And in your stance, try to shift your hips back a little bit. So if you notice your weight was really towards the ball of your feet, shift your hips back a little bit. Get your weight more into your heels. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to start to extend the right leg behind us now. So instead of in front of us, we're going to go behind us. So kind of going into a warrior three. And you can start to let the upper body hinge forward as much as you would like. Now, if you want to, close your eyes and see what happens with your balance here. And if you do that, maybe you got to take your foot way down. Okay, let's release. Let's try that now to the other side. Adding the eyes closed if you want to. And then all the way up. Okay, we're going to do one more balance. We're going to now take it out to the side. So your whole torso is going to lean to the side. You can start to tilt over as much as you would like. If you want to try again with eyes closed, feel free to add that in if you want to. Just seeing what happens when you take away the visual experience of this. And then let's switch it to the other side. All right, come back up. Okay, grab, if you have your yoga mat or a towel or something, can you roll it up? We're gonna do a few stretches to the back sides of the legs. So you want something that has a little bit of height. Like I said, your yoga mat kind of half rolled up would work here. Let's start with right foot onto whatever you have underneath you. And then let's take that opposite foot forward here. So straight legs, try not to have any really big bends into the knees here. Weight distribution is even between front to back. Even though we're doing a stretch for our feet, I'm going to have you guys pay attention to your breath for a moment. So take your hands to the outside of your ribs, so like the bottom half of your rib cage here. And as you hold this, I want you to breathe into your hands. Real slow exhale out. A couple of times like that. Okay, let's take and switch over to the other leg is going to be our stretching leg. You can get your weight set, leg set here. If you don't want to have your hands up on your ribs, you don't have to, but try to keep that same breath action happening. So again, try to breathe out to the side body. Okay, last deep breath here. Okay, let's take both feet up onto whatever you have underneath your legs, and we're going to roll our toes inward, or our heels inward. So roll your heels in. They should maybe almost be touching, so looking like a ballerina stance. Hands are going to come onto your legs. Come halfway forward, and you can use your hands, you're going to use your belly muscles to support your body here. As you hold this, work on shifting your hips forward more. And it's likely that as you start this stretch, your tailbone is going to be tucked under and your back is going to be rounded a little bit. So see if you can start to let that rounding come out, and your pelvis is going to kind of tilt forward slightly here. Okay, as you come up, take this out for just a moment. We're going to take that right foot down again. We're going to start to hinge forward here into that warrior three. And if you're able to, maybe take your fingertips down towards the floor. If not, you can do hands at your heart or hands onto this, the bottom leg here. So now the leg that's on the floor, hopefully that hamstring calf is released a little bit more, which gives you a little bit more access to the floor. Maybe not. And then stand up tall. Let's take it over to the other side. And even if you don't touch the floor, you can just hover above the floor if you'd like. And then all the way back up. Take both feet again onto whatever height you have. This time, heels facing straight back, and we'll come forward again. Again, notice the spine. Try to lift your tailbone up a little bit, getting into neutral, and then shift your hips forward. And if you notice that your legs aren't completely straight because your calves and hamstrings are just really tight, as each breath flows, see if you can add a little bit more length to the legs. And then we'll come up. We're going to revisit that warrior three one more time with hands down. So pick one foot to stay on the floor and start to extend the opposite back behind you. Again, maybe now there's even more length in your hamstring where you can get your fingertips to the floor where you couldn't before. And then next breath, see if you can be controlled, come back up, switch to the other side. And then slowly come back up here. Okay, we're going to just take the feet forward. We're going to bend the knees a little bit here and just coming into now a full forward fold. Another way of lengthening hamstrings, relaxing the spine here. So we're going to start first with knees bent, letting the lower back soften into this a little. And then as you keep breathing here, see if you can start to straighten one leg out, keep the other one bent, and then kind of just pedal it back and forth. Again, trying to add a little bit more length to the hamstrings as we go. Then start to add 2 straight legs. Breathe into the side body here, upper back. And we're going to add one more little thing to here. Again, I want you to see if you can lift your tailbone up. And what that's going to do is that's going to add even more length into the hamstrings. And then let's bend the knees. Let's slowly start to roll ourselves all the way up, coming up to the top. Okay, from here, we're going to step our right foot forward and left foot's going to be back. It's not going to be a very wide stance, so we're going to what's called pyramid pose in yoga. Both of your toes are going to be facing straight forward. Hands can come onto your hips here. What we're going to start to do is we're going to come halfway forward, come into straight spine. So if you notice that your tailbone is tucked under and you're rounded, start to let the tailbone lift a little bit. So you're doing a slight pelvic tilt here. Belly muscles, and now your spinal erectors, so the muscles that run right along the spine, they got to kick on to hold you here. Press into your feet, come all the way up, take the back leg, just step it forward. Same thing, start to come down, hold halfway. Press into the feet, rise up. That leg that you just stepped forward, step it back. Okay, this time when we start to come halfway forward, I want you to pay attention to this left hip, because what will happen is this left hip kind of rolls up a little bit. So guide this left hip down and imagine somebody setting a glass of water on your lower back, kind of right on your pelvis, and that should be stable from right to left. So left hip drops down a little bit, right hip pulls up slightly. Rise up. Let's step the other foot forward. Same thing, come down. Okay, you're going to drop the right hip. Left hip lifts up a little bit. And when you feel that left hip lift up a little bit, it's likely you're going to feel more stretch happening in this left hamstring here. Okay, rise up. Step that foot back again. Okay, now we're going to come into a full release. So we're going to start with coming halfway down, get your pelvis set, and then from here, start to round the whole upper body down, maybe hand onto your shin or fingertips down to the floor. Tuck your chin in towards your chest. See if you can drop the left side of your hip down just a little bit more. Pick the right side up. Last little thing we're going to look at here. Lift all 10 toes up off the floor. Spread your toes wide, and then set the toes back down. If your hands were on the floor, take and bring them up towards your shin or kind of walk them up your leg. Now see if you can use the strength of your hamstrings to bring yourself back up. That's hard. It's kind of like a deadlift that you're doing. Step the other foot forward. Same thing, start with a straight spine, come down. Get your hips set, and then start to fold all the way forward, much as your body will allow. Left side of the hip keeps lifting upward. Maybe try to lift your toes and spread them wide and set them back down. Let's try to add that deadlift as we come up. Great. Taking the feet wide, when you get up to the top, turn the toes and heels out. We haven't really done this type of a stretch in the back of the legs yet. We're going to come forward. We can start with hang on to our elbows here. And let's just start with our release straight down the center. So to roll to the outside edge of your feet, the big toes can actually, not that they're going to be completely lifted off the floor, but they should have a very small amount of weight on them. You could even kind of maybe lift the big toe up because most of your weight's on that outside edge of the foot. And then see if you can add a slight pelvic tilt where the front side of the pelvis comes down, the tailbone lifts up, again creating more length on the back side of the hamstrings. And then if your hands come down to the floor, you can take them down to the floor, or you can bend your knees to get your hands down. And what we're going to do is we're just going to start kind of shifting our weight side to side. So one knee bends, other knee bends, just this shift. And next time that you shift to one side, kind of walk your hands over to that side. And can you turn the opposite toe to face up? And then spin that foot down, walk your hand over to the other side, get your weight firm, spin the opposite toes up. So let's kind of add that movement side to side. In yoga, there's a pose called monkey pose. And this is some preparatory work to get into monkey pose. It combines a pretty deep hamstring stretch with also a squat. So it can be a lot of different things together that's needed to achieve that pose. Okay. As you go to one side, I'm gonna show you what monkey pose is, and you can decide if you want to even attempt it. So toes are facing up, this leg's gonna be straight, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna drop your hips towards your heel. You can try it if you want to. This heel is not on the ground, so this heel is lifted up. So this leg's in a squat, this leg's in a hamstring stretch. And then you'll lift your hips up, go over to the other side. Again, try to come down into a squat with one leg, other leg is straight. Okay, let's try it one more time if you're giving it a whirl. if maybe you're just in the up position where you didn't drop your butt, that's totally fine too. So try it again on one side. And then let's try it over on that other side. And then legs come straight. You can start to toe heel your feet in. We'll come down into a forward fold eventually. Okay, from here, let's bend the knees. Take and have a seat. We're going to take the legs straight out in front of us. And when you get there, let's do a few pelvic rocks. So let's rock to the back side of the pelvis, front side of the pelvis. And then eventually let's come where we're towards the front side of the pelvis a little bit more. We're out of this rounded lower back. Separate your feet and then just let the feet just take momentum into it and just let the feet rock. So just trying to let the legs loosen up a little bit more. Rocking tells the nervous system to let go, and sometimes the nervous system is what keeps our muscles in a state of constriction. Great. Bring the legs back together, toes facing up towards the ceiling. We're going to come halfway forward. Hands can be wherever you'd like. Try not to round your back. So try to keep a straight spine here. So another version of a hamstring stretch. And we're going to practice a particular breathing technique in this called sinking breath. So what's going to happen is as we inhale, we're going to come up out of the pose a little bit. We're going to straighten the spine. And then as we exhale, we're going to let gravity happen and sink us forward. And then we're going to inhale, come up out of the pose, straighten up the spine a little bit. Exhale, let gravity take over. Do a few of those. And what you might find is you can slowly start to release into this a little bit more with this breath. One last time. And then just stay with that last one. Stay forward. Draw your chin towards your throat and let your forehead come down towards your knees and shin. So now you're kind of rounding through this upper body. As you bring yourself back up nice and tall, you're going to take the left hand to the outside of the right leg. You're going to press the right hand into the left hand into the leg, and at the same time kind of push the leg into the hand. So you create some tension here. The opposite arm is going to come behind your back. Bring it in towards you and use the connection of the hand and the leg to create some leverage to turn you back a little bit more. Draw your chin down and in slightly. And then let's come towards the front. Let's again add some leverage on the other side. Hand presses into leg, leg into hand. Rotate. Kind of can pull with this right hand to twist you back a little bit more. And then we'll come back to the front. Hands just coming at your sides. Take and press down through the hands, and then with your sternum, lift up and extend back a little bit. Chin can come up slightly. And then from here, hands coming in front of you, tuck the tailbone under, round back, chin towards your chest now. So belly muscles worked in here. Use the belly, not the hands, to bring you all the way back up. Get your pelvis back where it's tilted forward a little bit versus tucked under. We're now going to bend the right knee, cross it over the left. We're going to again take opposite hand across, and you're going to again add some kind of torque here, some tension here. As you engage leg and arm together, opposite arm again is going to come behind you into a twist. As we're in this, let's take a moment to connect with the breath, bringing the breath really into this. So inhale, you're going to drop your chin down a little bit and think length. Exhale is going to be about twisting a little bit more. So each inhale, it's about length, lift up. Exhale, twist a little deeper. Good, come back to the front here. Let's take and switch it over to the other side. Again, create leverage with this arm. And then use the breath to take you deeper into the twist. And then we'll come back to the front. You're going to take the soles of your feet together, and we're going to do a couple different variations here. So what we're going to start with doing is we're going to take it where the big toes are connected together and the bottoms of our feet face each other. And so I want you to just try that version. And as you're in this version, I want you to just notice the height of your knees and notice what's happening with your pelvis. So when you get into this version, are you tucked under, or can you roll to this front side of your pelvis? Okay, now we're going to change the feet just a little bit. So what you're going to do is you're going to let the big toes come apart, and you can actually take your hands onto your knee, onto your feet. And it's like your feet are a book. And so your big toes are this outside edge of the book, and you're kind of prying the book open so the soles of your feet turn up towards the ceiling. To get that action, and maybe you want to try this toes together and just do this a few times. Toes together, open up, toes together, open up. Being able to do this has everything to do with ankle flexibility. Okay, now let's just keep the soles of our feet opened up as much as your feet and ankles allow you to be. And in this version, notice where your knees are. Did your knees come closer to the floor in this version compared to this? Probably for most of you, they did. And one of the tricky things about photographs and yoga people is they'll do this pose with their feet turned up, and it'll make it look like they have really, really flexible, mobile hips. And it has nothing to do with their hips. It has to do with the fact that they altered their ankle. And by altering the ankle, it just allowed the knees to come down more. So it's an illusion. It doesn't mean that they're more flexible. It just means they altered other body parts to get them into a different shape. Okay, so take your feet down now onto the floor, and we're gonna do that same action. Turn the soles of the feet up. So this is that same kind of thing. It's all ankle mobility. And release. Okay, the last thing that we're going to end with is another exercise for our toes. I can't see you guys, so I don't know if you're wearing socks, but if you're wearing socks, you're not going to be able to do this. You're going to have to take off your socks. What we're going to do is we're going to take our fingers and we're going to intertwine them in between our toes. And you might start with the very tips of your fingers being in between your toes, and that alone might be enough sensation for you where you don't want to take this any further. Others of you might go, oh, that's not so bad. My feet can tolerate that. If that's the case, you're going to start to sneak the wider part of your fingers in between your toes, so that they're coming apart even more. Then what we're going to do here is we're going to circle, and this can be done in whichever version, however deep your fingers are intertwined. And we're just going to start to circle. And then let's go the other direction. And just do a few curls down and up. Did you find that it's really difficult to spread your toes wide? Doing an exercise like this helps to loosen up the muscles in between the feet, in between the toes is what I want to say. Okay. Before we switch to the other side, just take your legs in front of you. Hands can just be behind you for support, and close your eyes. And let's just notice, how did our foot respond? How are the tissues responding? Does it feel again like there's more blood flow? Does that foot feel maybe like it has more energy? And how far up the leg does the sensations and the differences go? Is it just subject to the foot, or do you feel differences all the way up into that whole leg? Okay, let's even ourselves out. So let's intertwine in the other side. We'll just hold for a few breaths to start with. And then you can start adding your circling. And going the other direction. And some curling under and up here. And then we'll release. Take the feet again straight out in front of you, and let's give the feet a little wiggle. Wiggle the toes here a little bit. And then just rest with the legs straight out in front of you. Take a big breath in. Exhale all the way out. Do that one more time. Big breath in. And then let that breath go.